So the Israeli government is saying that the airstrike on the aid convoy wasn't deliberate, which means they're indiscriminately killing people in Gaza, which is a war crime. Uh, so they're either indiscriminately killing people or they're deliberately killing people. Both are war crimes.
We begin with the latest in the Middle East. President Joe Biden is to speak with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later today. And that's as Israel faces global condemnation for what it calls a mistaken airstrike that killed 7 aid workers in Gaza. The United Nations has suspended.
Though, how can you mistakenly kill people? I mean, they knew who they were. How is it a mistake?
Overnight aid operations in the Strip for at least 48 hours to evaluate security in the wake of the attack on Monday. The head of the charity that the victims had worked for has accused Israel of deliberately targeting his staff. Israel's economy minister Nir Barkat says it's nonsense to suggest that the IDF deliberately targeted aid workers, describing the incident as a tragic mistake. Sean Dilley reports.
So they're indiscriminately killing aid workers and Palestinians in Gaza, which has been pretty obvious. So they're admitting to committing crimes.
John Chapman, James Henderson and James Kirby, the 3 British men among 7 aid workers killed by Israeli airstrikes earlier this week. They were working for an aid charity, their humanitarian mission to distribute food.
But what I know is that we were targeted deliberately, non-stop, until everybody was dead in this convoy.
Yeah, it is a deliberate attack. The IDF knew where they were at. The convoy gave the IDF their location since they were working with the IDF, so that the IDF knew who they were.
Humanitarians and civilians should never be paying the consequences of war. This is a basic principle of humanity. At the time, this looks like it's not a war against terrorism anymore. Seems this is a war against humanity itself.
Israel says it will investigate, but it insists the aid workers died as a result of a tragic mistake.
There's no way in the world that Israel would target people that come to give people aid. That's nonsense. I'm sorry. Give us a bit of
So the Israeli government, again, just indiscriminately killed these people? Is that what you're saying? That it was an indiscriminate attack on people? Indiscriminate killing is a war crime.
of respect that we care about those people. And it's the same people that helped Israel. We will never target people like this.
It says, what about the other 100 or 200 aid workers that have been killed by the Israeli government? I mean, they act like they care about aid workers, but they don't.
Targeted or otherwise, their deaths are among thousands. International concern is growing, even among Israel's closest allies.
It doesn't really matter how they made the mistake. At the end of the day, you have 7 dead aid workers who were there trying to deliver humanitarian assistance.
In non-diplomatic speak, America is losing patience. Other allies, including the UK, are also applying pressure on Israel, responding to concerns about a growing humanitarian crisis.
Of course, the extra aid won't work unless there is proper deconfliction, unless aid can be taken around Gaza, and we avoid the dreadful incidents like we've seen in the last couple of days. That is vital, and Britain will be watching very closely to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, the Israeli government is pissing off all their allies, and eventually the only nation that will be continuing to help the Israelis will be the United States.
And 600 prominent lawyers, including 3 retired Supreme Court judges, say they're watching how the UK government reacts. In a strongly worded letter to ministers, they say the UK risks breaking international law if they don't stop providing weapons to Israel. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said an independent investigation should take place into the death of aid workers, but he stopped short of agreeing to cross-party calls to suspend UK weapons exports to Israel. Sean Dilly, BBC News.
Yeah, any nation that continues to give arms to the Israeli government is complicit in the genocide and deaths of the people in Gaza. The arms given to the Israeli government, uh, those people are the cause of these aid workers dying.
Well, our Middle East correspondent Yolande Nell brought us this update from Jerusalem.
Well, we have the Israeli military saying that it's conducting this thorough and transparent investigation. It's also reviewing proceedings and saying that it's looking at setting up a joint situation room where you would have the Israeli military working with international organizations to coordinate the distribution of aid on the ground. I mean, there's still continuing diplomatic fallout from all.
Right, they want to work, quote unquote, work with these aid organizations so that they know their locations and stuff so that they can then kill them in the future.
All of this, and we have been hearing that the US President Joe Biden is expected to speak for the first time since the killing of these aid workers. He's supposed to speak to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's previously said he's outraged and heartbroken by what happened, but what he hasn't shown yet is any willingness really to kind of use more of the US leverage against Israel when it comes to its dissatisfaction over the conduct of the war, particularly when it comes to US military assistance that is given. We had overnight comments that were made by the US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin talking to his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant. We're told that he was demanding concrete steps to improve the coordination with different foreign aid groups, said that this was all going to complicate efforts to flood Gaza with aid, which was the commitment that they had from the Israelis, and also made a connection here between Americans' concerns about the idea of a ground offensive by Israel, a full-scale ground offensive in Rafah in the very south of the Gaza Strip, because the US concerns about that have really been on humanitarian grounds because of the numbers of displaced people there. Interestingly, we also heard some comments from an Israeli diplomatic correspondent about Rishi Sunak's conversation with the Israeli Prime Minister, particularly related to the deaths of the 3 Britons who were killed in this Israeli airstrike in Gaza. And he was saying that...
So either the Israeli government is indiscriminately killing citizens of its allies, or they're deliberately killing citizens of their allies. Which is it?
Correspondent said that if there was no change in the situation regarding humanitarian aid getting into Gaza, then the UK might have to declare Israel in violation of international humanitarian law. That's something that would have real consequences. Downing Street has not